Oi, oi! Hello and welcome to it's Newbury Super Saturday this weekend. I'll take these off just for now. I'm doing a quick weekend preview for it. I'm just going to go through Saturday's action. There is some races to talk about in Newbury. It's a meeting that I absolutely love. I've got something in writing as well, the blog that I'm going to post up, so I'll put a link to that after so you can read rather than just have to listen to what I say. I'm going to touch on a couple of races at Warwick, we'll quickly talk about one at Naas as well. I want to try and keep this as quick and as concise as I can, so I'm going to flick over to sharing the screen. And yeah, I'll talk you through it while I've got the racing post up on the screen, so at least you've got the visual rather than just looking at this cheeky chop. A couple of things before I kick off though. One, just subscribe if you can, please. Still, the vast majority of you that watch these don't subscribe. It helps me out. And secondly, I'm raising some money for the Injured Jockey Fund soon, so either have a look on Twitter at the moment or watch this space until I put some more details out about it. So, as I say, we're going to look at Newbury as the main focus for Saturday. I'm going to go through most of the races. There's a couple that I haven't really delved into too much yet that we'll look at after, but I just wanted to make a few key points that maybe everyone will already be thinking, but hey-ho, my show, I'll do what I want. So, obviously we've got I'm going to do it like this, so I can get the odds comparisons up as well. Obviously we've got the Novices Handicap chase to kick off with. Brave Man's game's in there, only taken on 5 opponents. Fortunately for him, he puts 3 of those 5 out of the handicap because of the fact that there's a bottom line of minimum weight that they can carry, which is 10 stone 3. So he's got to give £16 away to Grumpy Charlie and Pat's Fancy, and he'll give £19 away to Fernhill, IK Brunel and Galley Hill. Each of those respectively are £4, £7 and £10 out of the handicap. So while they're not completely open and shut cases, none of those should really be winning it. And obviously this race is mostly about Brave Man's game. So I'll talk about the 2 that are closest that aren't out the handicap. Pat's Fancy's been touted as a bit of a national hunt chase horse. So I think as well he's run at Chepstow where he beat Imperial Alcazar, who's sort of improved after as a non-stayer. Maybe this isn't going to be enough of a test for Pat's Fancy, ground and things like that as well. Also looking at the jockey bookings for this. Now, Ben Jones typically rides, or has ridden, Pat's Fancy the last couple of times when he's won. James Bowen was on at the start of the season. Could be something and nothing in there, but it almost makes me feel like this is a run with a view to National Hunt Chase at Cheltenham. We'll have to just see, but again, maybe clutching at tiny bits of straws when I'm looking at that. But basically, I don't want to back Pat's Fancy, although I could see him running okay. Grumpy Charlie, rated 143, beat Fernhill here the last day. Is £3 different in the weight, so you've got to give him £3. Was giving him £1 there. But really, because of the way the ratings have panned out now, he's actually quite a bit better off just on those official ratings. So Fernhill was beaten a few lengths, and then obviously this guy's rating's gone up. Fernhill's, I think, stayed about the same. But I just want to talk about this horse. So Racing Post website will state that course and distance. It's not course and distance for this horse. It was 2 miles 6.5 that he won over. The horse did obviously win. When you look at some of his the deeper races that he's running, and we're talking about trips there, he ran 2 miles 6.5, so that's the furthest he's ever gone. When he ran in the Supreme, okay, admittedly it was probably the wrong trip, but we don't know. He ran over lots of 2-milers before. But there he was battered in graded company, and understandably so. Who wouldn't have been battered by Appreciate It? He was then battered in a novice listage chase by T Clipper. Then he goes and runs in a handicap of 137, wins. But I don't think the race was really that deep as far as I'm concerned. So whether he justifies the 143 or whether it's a winning handicap mark, I don't know. I don't think it is. Obviously, Brave Man's game sets the standard off for 159. We know how well he's been jumping. My take on this is he's the first of Paul Nicholls' runners to be going out this weekend. Nicholls was supposed to have Stage Star running at Huntingdon today in the Sydney Banks. That's not happening. He has got an entry at Exeter on Sunday, but slight tiny worries around that. Now, with talking about yard form and things like that, form I would consider as something that's sort of within your control, i.e., if you're just not running well or things like that. I don't want to go too deep into it because I want to keep this short. Things that can be outside of your control, like if a horse keeps getting brought down and things like that, like you're just a bit unlucky, that can be something that isn't as easy to manage. Now, Paul knows something's going on because he hasn't had any runners since last Saturday, apart from the one in Ireland. Was supposed to have a runner on Thursday. Now, this is a big enough meeting that he wants to run horses in it. I will just say this as a sort of cat amongst the pigeons scenario, that Paul Nicholls wasn't overly keen on running Brave Man's game at Cheltenham this season anyway. I think after what he did in the Calto Star, they were saying we might as well have a crack at Cheltenham. Then they saw what Galloping de Champ's done and then they were a bit on the fence. So for my take on this is, you would expect that trainers are only going to run their horses when they're fully fit. As far as Paul's concerned, all these horses are fit. It's just they're not particularly running to form. But if you were Paul Nicholls here, You'd think that Brave Man's Game's going to go and win this race, like he should go and win it. But if there was some sort of issue going on and he didn't run particularly to par, wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for Paul Nicholls as a man, because he might be able to say, let's swerve Cheltenham and go to Aintree. It'll be the same for Clanders Over that's going to run, and potentially the same for Hitman. Like, these aren't these Cheltenham horses that are running here. Potentially. So I do expect that Brave Man's Game should be going and winning this. The price that he is, you can see 8 to 11. I think you can get 4 to 5 about him. Would you really want to be looking at a Saturday with one of the first races of the day with your betting bank of whatever it is, 50 quid, whatever it is? Would you really be looking at it thinking, I want to put some of it on this one to try and find out what's going on? Do you want to put your whole bank on it to try and roll some money up? Or do you want to sit back and think, you know what, let's watch it. Let's expect that he's going to go and win this. But if anything, it's going to be a point or two if there is really a problem with the yard. For example, if Brave Man's Game was to get beat in this race, that would be alarming to me, and it would suggest that these horses later on in the day, you might want to oppose them a little bit from that. So that's my take on the first race. I don't think there's much more to say about it. We expect Brave Man's Game to win, but we just don't know what's going on with the Erie Ditchy at the moment. Second race, the 150. Race I've written something for every horse, bar Butler's Brief, so you'll see that in the blog post that I put out there. Polish obviously won the race off this same mark last year, won it fairly comfortably. Is qualified for the Potomkin, qualified 6th here at the beginning of the season. Does need to go up in the weights probably to get in there, so you'd expect him to have a chance. The Brimming Water I don't massively like. He's been running at 2 mile 5 for quite a bit. Stepping him up in trip, tongue ties on. He was beaten favourite the last day. I'm just not overly sold on this horse, really staying and wanting this trip. So at the price, I'm happy to swerve him. Risk and Roll's an interesting one. You'll see in the blog post I talk about this horse, that he'd seen had horse osteopathy, or basically had seen someone prior to that run, and then they thought he was going to run well. I didn't find that information out till after he'd run. Dotted up at 33s. I think could potentially be not necessarily good value for the £10, but I wouldn't say it's a harsh rise. So again, you can see why he's priced as he is. I know that Darryl quite likes What's Up With You, but I'm not keen on that horse myself. The two that I really, the 3 or 4 that I think that were worth giving a bit of a mention to is Coeur de Leon. He's won twice over hurdles, and they're both in novices. Hasn't won over a handicap, but he's down to a mark that's workable. I think he's won a chase off here, off a bit higher, or he's run round here off a higher mark. So I wouldn't completely outrule him. He's only had 2 hurdle starts in the last couple of years. Had a prep run on the all-weather after this as well, so I feel like he may have been set up for this, but don't think he's going to win probably. Sussex Rangers, another one that I think's come back from a little bit of a problem. It's strange to think that he's an 8-year-old considering how long around he's been, but he's one that I think may have been set up for this by the Moors. I just think that could be the case. His mark's declining. There's bits of form going a bit further back. Again, going to the right up for it, because I don't want to delve too much into it, because he's not even a selection in this. The big breakaway of 144. Now, we go back to his hurdling days. He looked like he was going to turn into an absolute monster chaser. He throws really weird shapes at his fences, whereas hurdling, he never had a problem. So we could all probably agree that he is a grade 2 hurdler, really. 144 looks very interesting to me. I trust Tizard. I like the fact that he runs them in races that maybe people would say they shouldn't run in, just to find out and answer questions, but he is an out-and-out 3-miler. Hurdle's lovely. Obviously did win here before. I think 9 to 1 about him is good value. So he's going on the bet slip. And then one that I'm going to go alongside him with is Scandyberg. Now, 28 is available here. I think it was 40s earlier. There might be some 33s still about. You can get enhanced places with Skybet and William Hill on this one. But I just want to talk about Scandyberg a little bit, and I think he's going to be popular. I think a few people are going to mention him. So hopefully the earlier people watching this might still get a bit of a price about him. But Charlotte Fuller's not too long had her licence, maybe a couple of years. She's only got a couple of horses in there. Both horses that she's got from Jamie Snowden. The other one that she had, which I've written all this up in the blog, almost won the other day, got beat 3/4 of a length in a mare's handicap hurdle, like an 85 rated mare. But basically, Ollie Murphy had Scandyberg before, rated this as a proper nice horse. Ran close to Honest Vic, who's in the 140s rated now. Won at Aintree after he said that he fancied him. Then he won at Cheltenham after again, he's already talked about how good a horse he was. And then he just flopped at Cheltenham. Had wind surgery, couple of chase starts, then he went to Jamie Snowden that is. He almost got him to run well and to win in a handicap hurdle off 138, was beaten half a length. Then he ran again, and then he's gone to Charlotte Fuller. And this is where I'm thinking the plan might have started. Now, I'm not saying this is a plot by any stretch of the imagination, but look, he's a 3-miler for definite. Ran over 3 miles. Ran all right here, because I did back him, to be honest with you, on stable debut. Back Dolphin Square as well. But in this instance, he was £10 higher than he's going to run off today. Only beaten 10 lengths, and we know Dolphin Square went off and won after that. Now, he's going to be out the back, stay on. Not really going to be a bet to lay type of horse. But they've twice run him at a trip that's too short for him. Admittedly, the ground might have helped, but he is an out-and-out 3-miler. He's dropped £10 conveniently because of those couple of runs, including this one here. I think, off this mark, he's very, very dangerous. He did win that race at Cheltenham, albeit a couple of years back, of 134. That would have been when he was a 6-year-old. He's entitled to have improved since then. I know he's probably had some issues, but way too big a price, especially when there's a few or 4 places up for grabs. So I think he'll be popular by a few pundits, but hey ho, I said it first, I'm the king. I'm not the king, kind of the king. Anywho, Denman Chase, Clanderzobo. So he is a much better horse than the other horses that are in here. I don't buy into the Royal Pagaille could be a Gold Cup horse like from last year or even for this year, and potentially does need crapper ground Royal Pagaille. Don't need to really show his colours. Clanderzobo didn't want to win this race last year, got beat half a length by Secret Investor. They did put the cheap pieces on when they went to Aintree, and that duly obliged, and he dotted up, then went and won over in Ireland, didn't he? Run okay, I suppose, in the King George, but it wasn't as good as I could expect him to run. So it begs the question mark, with these horses where they're maybe a little bit quirky, didn't want to win it last year, they had to put the cheap pieces on. How long are these cheap pieces really going to work? And of course, that trainer form, not that I want to keep bouncing on it. But long and short of it is, if Brave Man's Game goes in at the beginning and I'm less worried about the form, then I would say Clanderzobo even is a bettable price. I think he's clear of all of this field. Emporial hasn't completed in his last 4 starts. Last time he completed, I think it was when he won the Close Brothers beating Galvin, or I think he actually he beat Itchy Feet, didn't he, the last time? Sorry. I'm just trying to go too quick. So yeah, beat Itchy Feet, beat Windsor Avenue, beat Galvin in that Close Brothers, who's now via favouritism in a Gold Cup. But we still don't definitely know whether Imperial Aura stays the stern test. Got beat by Pim there over 3 and a bit. Who knows? But I just don't think he's good enough to win this anyway. I think Clanderzobo is the one. Now, obviously, if the form of the yard is going down a little bit, I wouldn't be having an interest in the race, but Royal Pagaille should pick up the pieces, I guess. But I would think that Imperial Aura has got potential to give Royal Pagaille a bit of a run for his money. But yeah, Clanderzobo could end up being a bet if Brave Man's Game goes in that opener. And I'm sure a few people will have the muggy double in, and they pay about 3-1 when you get an evenish. So we've now got the Game Spirit Chase. Now, this is a race where Editor de Geet's now a non-runner. I've just seen that, but he's in what mentioned in my write-up. But Editor de Geet and Sky Pirate are handicapped as far as I'm concerned. Fernambul de Savola, I don't know why I put D in there, but won nicely the last day at Doncaster. I didn't think he suited Cheltenham. I know a couple of people like him for a Grand Annual, but right race to run him in here, has a chance. Hitman hasn't really done anything to achieve this 160 official rating or his monster 179 Racing Post rating. That Tingle Creek run in isolation looks good, doesn't it? But I don't trust Grenadine's performance that day. Obviously, Shackle wasn't great. It wasn't himself there. I don't trust that he's run to that performance. And then you go back and look at all these other runs. They're all pretty much in defeat, apart from beating a couple of horses. When actually, when you look at the substance of those, none of it warrants him being near a 160 horse. So he could have won this Holden Gold Cup. He didn't really want to go through with it, but then he didn't win. Travelled like a nice travelly thing. I'd be against Hitman anyway. I did kind of think when they swerved the Clarence House that Hitman coming here would be a good choice. But again, the yard form and then him, I just don't like it. Whereas we've got So Royal, won this race last year, beaten Champ. No one talked about it because everyone was talking about how great Champ was. Probably could have won the Champion Chase last year. If anyone doesn't agree with me on that, go back and watch it. Got himself in bits of troubles, and I know he comes 5th, but he's run really well. Forget that run at Sandown because he's run intermittently at Sandown. He's not always the best. But you look at his runs after. Beating Silver Streak, the late Silver Streak, in his home yard comfortably at Kempton in that listed hurdle was a serious effort off a level weights. Then dots up after. Then in that fight in 5th, in driving snow, ran so well to get that close to Not So Sleepy and Epatton. And then the International was just too close. We could just draw a line through that. But he's good round here. Groundle suit, all those bits and pieces. I know I talk about yard form, like Alan King's not in the greatest form at the moment, really, is he? But less of a concern. Like, I don't believe in trainer form too much. I mean, like I say, form's one thing. It's when it's outside of your control that you can't really do too much about it. So Royal, I think, is a knocking price. I think he's a great bet in here. I do think that both Hitman and Venetia's horse have got the chance to be able to beat him, so I can see why they're priced as they are. Venetia's obviously coming in red hot form, whereas you could question the other two. So I think they'll be popular, but So Royal for me is the bet, and I think at the price that he is he's a backable price. So hopefully that's how it plays out in that Game Spirit. We'll move on to the 3 o'clock, the Betfair hurdle. There's tons and tons and tons of horses in here I could talk about, but I'm going to keep it fairly short. JPR1 is a horse that I've backed anti-post, and I'm still keen on him now. I hope he runs well, and I hope he wins it. I think he's got a lot of class. If you go back and watch his last run, albeit over 3 furlongs further, when they gave him a little crack of the whip, he was so lightning quick to respond. People talk about Facile Vega, that bumper out, the turn of foot she showed. JPR1 did a similar thing. Napa's Hill's a horse I like, but again, the Nichols thing, I don't really like it. Boot Hill's got first time tongue tie on. I would have given him a bit of a chance, but he scares me a little bit. And Harry Fly didn't run him here in the Novices Handicap chase when I thought he would. And I think it's going to be similar-ish ground. So who sort of knows? Broomfield Berg, we all saw how eye-catching he was at Cheltenham when he didn't go through it, and then he's come out and won since. But how good that form is, I just don't know. Plenty in there you can make a bit of a case for. The Nigel Twiston Davis, they did this with Ballyandy a few years back, didn't they? They came here to run in the bumper. I like to move it, did come second. Then they went off, and then they came back to win this race. He's a bit higher than Ballyandy was. I think Ballyandy was 135. Don't think I like to move it is a better horse than Ballyandy, but semi-interesting. One that Darryl put me on at a big price is How Do You Like Me Now? There's some bits and pieces of form in there where horses have come out and dotted up since to suggest that his mark is probably an okay mark and that he shouldn't be the size price that he is. So let's just really hope that JPR1 goes in, because that'll pay for me to get some new windows. Then the last couple of races I haven't massively looked at. King Otaka, again, when I was speaking to Darryl earlier, he just reiterated to me that when he listened to Nicky Henderson talk a bit earlier in the season, this was a horse that he mentioned as one of his potentially nicer ones to go novice hurdling with as the season goes on. It's Nicky Henderson in a novice hurdle at Newbury. Like, it's fairly obvious, isn't it? That he's going to be one that's fancied. And then in the bumper, which can be a good pointer towards it, as I say, mentioned Ballyandy, he won this and then he went on and won the actual champion bumper. Time for a Tune, as much as I wanted to knock him at Cheltenham, or knock her, sorry, when she ran at Cheltenham, I think it's a her. I'll just need to double check. I'm looking at the penalty system and trying to work out why it's a different rating. No, Gelding, sorry, I tell a lie then. It was this Flying Sarah, sorry, that's the one that was the mare that was in behind. But I tried to take him on. No real reason to. It was a pretty good effort in that race at Cheltenham, to be honest with you. The Chepstow run, I do think he could have got beaten, but is what it is. Like, I talked about this horse earlier in the season why I was happy to take him on. Again, we've got the Nicholsy form in there. I haven't dug into this one too deep, but I would probably be looking at what they're going to do with the prices, and I think Time for a Tune might be short. I'll probably be looking for something as an each-way nibble. Not got anything for you at the moment as it stands, but I will have something in the blog for Newbury. We're going to skip over to Warwick quickly just to talk about a couple of races in here. I mean, everyone's going to know which ones I'm going to talk about. We'll just talk about the one, really. We'll talk about the Kingmaker, because Edwardstone, I've talked about him a few times for the Arcor, and I don't really rate him, to be honest with you. And I think people are saying that I need to give him some more credit. Well, maybe I'll give him some more credit after we see how this race pans out. Now, ground and going is potentially going to play a factor in the performance of this. The softer it gets, the more it potentially will suit Edwardstone. The quicker it gets, the more it would probably suit Third Time Lucky. But I do think when you look at the prices here, Third Time Lucky is too big a price at 9 to 4. Like, I'm hitting Third Time Lucky at that price, although I need to be waiting to see what the ground does. The thing with Edwardstone is, right, and I know I keep knocking him all the time, and second season novice, and I don't think he's beaten too much. Just a few things that I'm just going to bring your attention to quickly now as I'm almost drawing this weekend preview to a close. Dan Skelton's got Stepney Causeway here. They've got a bit of a yardstick for how Edwardstone is. Not saying they need to necessarily use that, but they've got a bit of a yardstick. Third Time Lucky's had enough runs, suffered an overreach potentially in the light of novices. They could have taken him to Cheltenham fresh, couldn't they? Like, Third Time Lucky doesn't need this run. Then we've obviously got the Henry VIII novices chase. Now, Third Time Lucky, it's difficult to say the main reason why he ballsed up, because some horses just don't really get on with Sandown as a track. Maybe that's part of it, but he was far, far too keen. It wasn't his true running, and I know Edwardstone looked very impressive in there, but look at the price differential was there to see. Like, we didn't think there was tons and tons and tons between them, but no one thought there was 16 lengths between them. Then we look at the Kempton run, and I think time-wise people have given him the rating and given him the credit for it, and fair enough, say what you like. Solo was in third. Solo was absolutely pants at Cheltenham on trials day, and I fancied Solo that day as well. Then Do Your Job. Admittedly, he's got B, and Edwardstone's apparently done it comfortably, but Do Your Job as your yardstick has then gone and run in that light of novices and has been battered by Third Time Lucky. Now, I know the distance is different because of how they were ridden. Obviously, out of contention, there's no need to necessarily ride him, but Third Time Lucky's put him in that position where he can't go the gallop. So you read the form of that on its own, away from what you think the performance was or the times or anything were, like, that hasn't really been franked, has it? And I like Third Time Lucky, so yes, I'll have to eat humble pie if Edwardstone beats Third Time Lucky here, because it means Third Time Lucky isn't going to be beating Edwardstone when they come to Cheltenham, although different track, isn't it? And obviously Third Time Lucky has already won over there over fences. But I think this is wrong. massively. I fancy Third Time Lucky. I think 9 to 4 is a decent price. I'm happy to back him. And I think when you look at the Arkle market, about 7 to 1-ish Third Time Lucky is non-one and no bet. If you think he's got a chance of winning the Arkle, he's really got to be beating Edwardstone here. So you'd rather play the 2 to 1 for conversation's sake, we say that. And then you're going to get 3 times your stake to be able to put on him at a reduced price. He ain't going to go shorter than 11 to 4 that the Blue Lord is. So Third Time Lucky, I'm backing him here. And if he does go and do it, I could be tempted to be lured in for Cheltenham. I'm not anti-post punting, we know that. But Third Time Lucky, I'm going to have a bit on him. So the two really, So Royal and Third Time Lucky are the couple I'm going to get stuck into. Scandyberg I've got a bit each way on. I'll play the big breakaway as a punty, win-only bet. Just for the sake of it. And then obviously I've got quite a bit of money going on JPR1 in the Betfair hurdle, but don't forget the one that was mentioned at a big price. We'll quickly swerve over to Naas because there's one horse that lots of people will be getting excited about, and it's Journey With Me. Now, this auction novice hurdle is a race where it's basically store purchases, but they don't have to just be stores, but they bought a public auction for less than €45,000. So in theory, they're anybody's horse to buy. Like, they're not these $250,000 ones, $500,000 ones that not anyone can get stuck into. City Island ran in this conditions race, or this auctiony race, and then went on and won the Ballymore. I still think he was juiced that day. Can't say I'll get done for slander, but look what he's done since. Journey With Me's targeted to come here for an obvious reason, but I think they were expecting to get a quiet race, which they haven't particularly got in here. I think there's some okay horses. We know O'Toole's quite well touted, so it's going to be quite a good race to watch. How much depth there really is in there, i.e. if someone was to go and absolutely bolt up in here, I think there's enough to say that, yes, they're a very good horse. There's not enough depth in the race for me that if you've got a couple of them battling out the finish and there's only couple of lengths between them, that then puts them into festival or grade 1 hurdlers as far as I'm concerned. So the expectation with this is to sit back and watch and hope that something absolutely bolts up, because I think there's enough behind it to say, hang on a minute, we may have a Ballymore horse here. And that's what we're looking for. We're all looking for a horse that potentially could be a Ballymore one. I'll leave it as that. I don't want to say too much about an opinion other than that in the race. So that pretty much draws to a close the weekend preview. No, seems like it's probably been fairly rushed, but I just wanted to get it out there as quick as I could. I'll post up the link to the blog in the comments once I finished it, so it won't be up there straight away, but you'll better read my thoughts on everything at Newbury, and I'll write up the Lightning Novices chase. The Kingmaker, sorry. I'll write that race up as well, just so you've got it in writing, what I'm saying about those horses. And be lucky. Fingers crossed we will have a good weekend, and I'll catch you on the other side.